I'd like to show you how to make a plantain salve. Salve is an old word for ointment, and I've chosen plantain because it's very common, and country folk used to make all sorts of ointments and remedies with plantain because it's very common. In fact, it's called common plantain. The Latin name is Plantago major, and it's easy to recognize because it has these rat tail-like seed heads. So it's also called rat tail. Making herbal medicine, like any medicine, is a very exact science, but making home remedies is more like cooking. You just need simple ingredients and simple utensils, and you can easily make your own remedies for home use. And you'd use a plantain salve for all sorts of cuts and bruises and sores, for eczema, for mild burns, and an old herbalist once said that it's the best remedy he'd ever known for piles. It's also astringent, so that means you can use it for cuts that need sort of drawing together and repairing, internally or externally. It's also used for lung conditions because it has an expectorant quality, which means that it helps you cough up gunge in your lungs. So to make the ointment, I have picked fresh plantain and I've measured up 2 ounces. I'm using as the base some coconut oil, and I'm going to first put that in the pot and then put that on to melt. And I've got 200 ml of coconut oil, and I love coconut oil because it's very easy to use and it's very gentle on the skin. Once we've finished, we'll actually put the ointment back in the pot. And if you want, you can, meanwhile, while the ointment is making, you can take the label off and put your own on. It has to melt over a very low heat. The trick you can use if you can't turn down your cooker enough is to use an old-fashioned gas toaster to put under the pot. So I won't use that yet, but once the ointment gets going, then it just needs a very, very low heat. So just let that melt, and while that melts, I'm going to chop up the plantain. And I'm going to add to this ointment some lavender. You don't have to add lavender, but it gives a lovely scent, and lavender is also excellent for insect bites or anything itchy, and it's also a natural antiseptic. So it's a lovely thing to add. The reason I'm cutting up the leaves is that what we want to get at the juice that's inside the leaves. So the more they're cut up, the easier it is to get to. There we are. Meanwhile, the oil has melted enough to add the plantain. While the plantain is heating up, I'm going to measure out a little bit of lavender that I have picked in the garden. It's the right season, and if you haven't got lavender in the garden, or it isn't the right season, you can use a few drops of lavender oil that you would then add in the end of the process so as not to evaporate the volatile oil. Or you can buy a lavender bag and just measure out a little bit. I'm going to use just 1/4 ounce, which is about 8 grams. Just like that, as much as this, just to give a little bit of scent to the mixture, and also because lavender is a natural antiseptic, and it's also used for itches and bites and so on, so it's a nice combination, the two of them. Even though culpepper, he says that plantain cools everything, it's a cooling herb, and it removes heat from whatever it gets into contact with. And that's very interesting that he had that view hundreds of years ago, because it is an anti-inflammatory, and as the name suggests, something that is anti-inflammatory takes the heat away, because something that is inflamed is full of heat. So it takes the heat away, and lavender is also used to take the heat away for different reasons, but it's a nice combination, I think. I'm going to simmer the plantain together with the lavender and the oil for about half an hour, and then I'll show you how to filter it. The plantain and lavender has now been simmering for half an hour in the coconut oil, and I'm going to filter it. I've got a very fine sieve, and I'm just going to pour the mixture in here. Here in France you can get very high-tech filtering sieves that have a thing on top, so you just turn it. But you can just as easily, or maybe just with a little bit more work, press it with a spoon. So you want to press as much of the liquid as possible out of the leaves without getting leaves into the mixture. And since we have used fresh herbs, there's probably going to be a little bit of water in the ointment. And if you can't get that to mix, the trick is to turn the pot upside down while it cools down. Give it a shake from time to time, but then turn it upside down, because the liquid will be underneath the oil, since oil always sits on top of water, which is why you can pour oil on the troubled waters. And that means that at the end you can just take the lid off and pour any extra liquid out. This looks pretty good to me now. And then into my pot that I have cleaned in the meantime, so I can put a new label on. If it's hard to aim, just use a funnel. There's less, it's a bit less than when I started. That's a good portion. Just give it a shake from time to time while it cools down to keep it emulsified. And then at the end, turn it upside down. Plantain ointment.